This month, our theme of pause for guidance, pausing for guidance. How often are we as human beings, as spiritual beings in this human expression, ripping and running, doing things, and not taking a pause for guidance? It's important this month to recognize that and to actually begin to implement behaviors and activities that actually support our well being. Yeah, this month, while we've been pausing for a cause, I've had the opportunity to ask myself, am I stuck in beliefs and behaviors that are destructive? Am I stuck in beliefs and behaviors that are destructive? So let's take a look. This year so far, we've been looking at the annual theme of timeless wisdom, evolutionary vision. What we know is that a people without vision fail. People without vision perish. And at Downey Center for Spiritual Living, we have had vision, our vision and mission. We are seeing ourselves at our new location. We're seeing ourselves thriving and uplifting, and we're seeing ourselves living our best life. We also have this vision and mission within Centers for Spiritual Living, where we see a world that works for everyone, that we envision a world that has renewed its emphasis on beauty and nature and love through the resurgence. In other words, it's coming back, the resurgence of creativity, art, and the aesthetics. We envision a world that works for everyone and for all creation. And since that is our vision and mission, this month we take a look at pausing for guidance. And as we pause for guidance, today we're going to talk about sparking imagination. And I just want to give a shout out to our beloved Reverend Kevin Cottle, who not only does all these things for our center behind the scenes, but he actually wrote the outline for today's talk. And the outline is absolutely wonderful in that as we pause for guidance and as we're sparking imagination, we're actually tapping into the timeless wisdom and the evolutionary vision that is necessary to catapult us and to move us forward in our daily living. Now, what I love about our talks and about what we're continuing to do each and every day is that our way of being is a is a practical way. This is all about practical application. I know many places where we can go where there's lots of projection, and there's, oh, you could do this and you can do that and you can have this and you can have that, but we're talking about a practical application for sparking imagination. Now, Ernest Holmes tells us in our Science of Mind book that creation is the play of life upon itself through divine self imagination. Creation is the play of life upon itself through its divine self imagination. So, in other words, the outpicturing of life, the play of life is creation. And The only way to have creation is through divine self imagination. As a matter of fact, in our Science of Mind book, he says it here, the creative power responds to feeling more quickly than to any other mental attitude. Now, not only are we a teaching of oneness and wholeness, not only are we a teaching and a philosophy that states that God is right where you are, that there's one power, one presence, one life, and that life created everything out of itself through some act of involution. We now have evolution, and that act upon itself created all that is seen and unseen, the galaxies, all of the fish in this in the sea, and the birds in the air, and everything has that essence. We are a teaching and a philosophy that recognizes the oneness of all life, and in that we're reminded that we, because of who we are, because of what we are, we're the unique, unrepeatable, magnificent, powerful way that God shows up in human form. Because of who we have the power to co create, that our thoughts become things. And it is only through our imagination that we create that feeling tone that is generated from our imagining. That is how we create. As you think about your particular life and your living, you can see how this is made manifest and how it has been made manifest. Think about what schooling or college you wanted to go to, and how you applied yourself, and where you studied, and you wanted to buy a car, and what car did you want, and you could actually begin to see yourself and picture yourself and imagine yourself driving a particular vehicle, living in a particular neighborhood, marrying the love of your life. All of these things have been made manifest because you have dared to imagine. And now, some of us, as a result of living long enough and breathing in and out long enough, may have become a little bit jaded, may have maybe even saying, hey, sunshine, you know, this whole imagination thing, this is all for Disney movies and fantasies and Marvel comics and all of that stuff. You know, really, when we're thinking about imagination now, like, you know, I'm too old for that, or that just doesn't work for me. And so I'm here to simply share with you and to encourage you to pause for guidance, as the monthly theme would suggest. To pause for guidance. And in that guidance, there may be a circumstance, a situation, whether it be related to your family, to your health, to your marriage. It may be related to relationships or finance. It may be just related to our state of affairs in our cities, in our states, in our world, in our country. That when we pause for guidance, when a circumstance or a situation comes up, that we have spiritual tools at hand that we can use for good in life, not only for our personal good, but for the good of all. And so, in that pause for guidance, you may not think that imagination has a part to play, but it absolutely does. You know, first of all, you are not broken. With that said, right where you are, there is a fertile and vivid imagination. Your inner vision is filled and flows with a limitless amount of creativity, new thoughts, feelings, ideas, and it is there. You may not notice it, but it is there and it is ready. It is there at your disposal to simply be tapped into and sparked. What I know about the Downey Center for Spiritual Living community is that we are filled with amazing artists and engineers and people who are always creating and always tapping into it. And that age has nothing to do with our imagination or our ability to create. It all has to do with our willingness to simply be present and spark that imagination, because once that imagination is sparked, other sparks, other creative ideas begin to flow. Now, I remember going once to a minister's retreat, and one of the folks there introduced me to this way of thinking that actually sparks my imagination. So I wanted to share it with you. And she simply called it what if up. What if up? And it's the what if. It's asking myself the what if question, but instead of going to the doom and gloom of what could possibly happen, that I actually do what if and then look up and consider what are the most magnificent ways that something could actually come to pass. So, um, some of you might think it's silly, but what if I got this job? What might that look like? What would be the joy of this job? And to just begin to look up and to begin to spark that imagination about the changes and the differences and the camaraderie and the leadership that could begin to flow from me if I got that particular job. Or what if, let's say you're facing a health situation, using your imagination, using your imagination could actually put you in the feeling tone and can actually create the necessary energy, the necessary healing juices within you to propel you forward. Because again, Ernest Holmes says it's that feeling that creates. There is a creative process. Our creative process says that we plant a seed, we let it go. We know that it's already done and it becomes made manifest as long as we're feeling it. And that feeling, when we're talking about imagination, it is that feeling tone of imagination. That's what makes all of those movies like so wonderful, because even for just 20, 30 minutes, when you're in imagination, your brain cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined. And so, since your brain cannot tell the difference, it's important for us to begin to place ourselves in that feeling tone of feeling good, that feeling tone of all is well, that feeling tone of life is for me and never against me. Our Science of Mind book says that imagination carries with it feeling and conviction, which means life and action. So as I begin to feel my way into the joy of life, as I begin to feel my way into everything is coming together for my highest good, the conviction rises up and I'm taking the necessary actions for my life. I love what Albert Einstein says: imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. So, how does one begin to allow imagination to happen? How does one begin to really allow our imagination to have its way with us? Well, you can always jump into the what if up, but we also have spiritual practices. Our spiritual practices of prayer and meditation, our spiritual practices of visioning. Reverend Kevin does our visioning every month for us, and he leads us in that. And one of the things that he likes to talk about, which I love attributing to him, is this idea of mini visionings and incorporating that into our lives on a daily basis. I mean, begin to see yourself waking up tomorrow morning, and upon awakening, upon embarking upon our spiritual practices of prayer and meditation. But what about this opportunity that we have for a mini visioning? That what it looks like is simply from that calm and receptive state. And when I talk about it, I like to close my eyes, right? From that, and I invite you to do the same right now, unless you're driving, of course. But from this calm and receptive state, you can simply ask yourself and ask that indwelling power and presence, what is for my highest and best today? What adventures are available? And simply begin to ask those open-ended questions and watch and feel and sense with all of your senses how life rushes to answer that for you in a way and in a manner that you understand. You see, it's always in a language that you understand. It could be that language of feeling, that language of maybe you hear a particular word, or maybe you see a particular color, or your sense of smell and taste are heightened. But it's simply getting into a calm and receptive state. And when we ask those questions of this indwelling power and presence and are receptive to receive that divine impression, that divine feeling, that intuition, that hit, that spark, all of a sudden, that spark of imagination, that spark of life, that spark of divine guidance comes to us, and we can begin to use what comes in and from us to live our amazing and genuine life. It's interesting because as this becomes a regular practice, it is actually refreshing, and it actually allows that spark of imagination to activate the feeling tone. And as that feeling tone is activated, what we're doing is participating in the creative process, which is simply planting a seed in spirit. We're planting that seed. We're planting that seed. We're having that thought. We're entertaining that thought. And that thought, as a result of the feeling tone that's attached to it, that feeling of, yes, this is mine. Yes, this is the peaceful and calm life that I want to live. Yes, I can feel myself running through the meadow. Even though I may not be able to physically run, that opportunity of imagining myself running through the meadow begins to release those chemicals, those healing vibrations within one, and begins to put that smile on our face. Participating in spiritual practice like this on a regular basis begins to put us in the mindset of si se puede. Yes, I can. Yes, it is possible. And when we're in that feeling tone, when we're in that mindset, in that consciousness of all things are possible, and this is possible. Yes, I have it now, even though it physically may not be in my hand tangible, as I can begin to imagine myself with my hands on the steering wheel, as I can feel myself embracing my loved ones, as I can see and feel and move into that feeling tone, already that sense of having it belongs to me. And when that sense belongs to me as a result of my imagination, of my proper use of imagination, then as Albert Einstein said, it is the future of what is to come. In other words, I'm already satiated. I have already manifested the thing itself because I am in that realm of feeling it. You know, as we begin to actually take these words out of this is possible to I'm going to try this on. I'm going to try it. You know, what I'm going to invite you to do is to prove me wrong. You know, to do this for 90 days, to actually begin to put the action in place and to begin to spark that imagination within you, that creativity within you, and watch and journal or jot down, you know, from start to finish how you are feeling and what is shifting and changing in your life. Because as you add and amplify your intention to be so mindful in your vivid and fertile imagination, things absolutely shift and change. You know, Ernest Holmes speaks of, you know, that we can talk about the science of mind philosophy all the time, but how many of us are actually going to prove that it works? So this is not my challenge, but this is my invitation, beloved, that if there's an area in your life that you're not thrilled with, to begin to use the power of imagination, the spiritual practices of prayer and meditation and doing visioning and mini visionings to have a shift. You can have that shift. And notice each time when you have a new thought or a new idea or a new inkling or a new intuition, you know, in those moments of imagination, notice the emotional change in your body and notice how your imagination begins to shift your entire being. What I can share with you quickly is that people have healed their bodies and have healed illness through the power of imagination. I believe that we can cure the illnesses of this day and time, that we can provide food for each and every person, that we can actually break down or tear down borders if we were to each begin collectively and individually imagining this world that works for all creation. This is what I continue to hold on to. And I invite you to do the same. And so it is.